Welcome. I'm Laura Washington, proud to be a senior editor at In These Times and proud to be here tonight to help facilitate this fabulous gathering and fabulous conversation. What I'd like to do first is just introduce our panelists with very brief bios in the interest of time, and then I will turn it right over to David Sirota. David, as you know, is a political journalist. He writes a nationally syndicated weekly newspaper columnist, and he is the author of The Uprising, which just hit the New York Times bestseller list this week. He is known for his reporting on political corruption, globalization, and working class economic issues that are often ignored by America's political parties. The New York Times called him a, quote, populist rabble-rouser, unquote, with a, quote, take no prisoners mindset. The Philadelphia Daily News said he's a progressive powerhouse. His weekly column, syndicated by Creator Syndicate, appears in newspapers with a combined daily circulation of more than 1.6 million readers. David Sirota.
Thank you. I just want to say, can I take it out of this?
Yeah.
I just want to say, I am really humbled to be on this panel. Really, it is really an amazing panel and at an amazing magazine. So, without further ado, this presentation I'm gonna whip through it, just to give you a sense of what the book is about. But beyond going into what the book is about, because everybody here I know is going to buy 10 copies each, we're going to sort of set the stage for why this uprising that I describe in the book is important. So, the book is called An Unauthorized Tour of the Populist Revolt Scaring Wall Street in Washington. So the first question is, well, what's a populist uprising? Well, the first question then is, well, what is populism? Yeah, you can turn it off if that makes it better. This is about the best definition I've seen, although certainly not the only one. Populism refers to any politics that champions issues that have a broad base of popular support but receive short shrift from the political elite. You can have left populists and right populists, populists who demand higher welfare spending like Huey Long, and populists who champion welfare reform like every successful Republican politician from Nixon to Gingrich. So what's an uprising? Well, we've had progressive uprisings and conservative uprisings in our past. Both, as I say in the book, are a reaction rooted in backlash sentiments of anger. Here's just a couple of progressive uprisings from our past. From the 1890s to the 1920s, you had the progressive era, the suffrage movement, the movement to clean up workplaces, the trust busters, the beginnings of the labor movement as we know it today. That was a reaction to the Gilded Age. 1930s and 1940s, the rise of really the strong labor movement that we know today. That was a reaction in part to the Great Depression. 1960s, the civil rights and the anti-war movements. This was a reaction to segregation in the Vietnam War, fairly obvious. Conservative uprisings, and if I'm going too fast, just let me know, but I want to have enough time so we have Q&A. 1850s and 1890s, you had nativist uprisings that were a reaction to Catholic immigration. 1940s and 1950s, this was sort of the Red Scare, the McCarthy era, reaction to a fear of Soviet infiltration and to basically conservative fear-mongering. In the 1980s, the Reagan uprising, or the conservative uprising that became the Reagan and Gingrich Revolution. This was, I say, as a reaction to the demonization, the effective demonization of liberalism. So the 1980 comparison, this is a very, I think, important comparison to understanding what kind of uprising we're living in right now. Now, there are many uprising factors that transcend historical periods. Here are just a few of them that we see in so many uprisings. A traumatic economic transition, a financial meltdown, an energy crisis, national security incompetence or a crisis, a loss of confidence in government, and politicians basically stoking the fire or really intensifying a lot of demagoguery. So we'll take a look at a couple of these. So a traumatic economic transition as it relates to the comparison between the late 1970s, 1980 uprising and today. This is a graph of total manufacturing employment in the United States from 1980 to 2008. Here was the 1980s uprising, and this is what was going on. Here's today's uprising, or what has set the stage for it. Right? Major trauma to the economy. And it gets even more similar than that. In 1980 we had deindustrialization and labor persecution, steel plant closures, politically sanctioned strike breaking, and this became such a part of our economy that it started to be venerated and seeped into, in a really fundamental way, even our pop culture.
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works. Greed clarifies, cuts through, and captures.
So, it becomes so part of the culture that it begins, you know, this is a comedy movie, this is a serious movie. Here's today. So we've got job outsourcing, another kind of economic crisis, politically sanctioned strike breaking, and again, it seeps into, you should lower the volume here, it seeps into our pop culture.
They took our jobs! Oh, yeah.
This is South Park.
We're in the moving business. 14 years we've been working our butts off. Now these future folk come in and we can't get work nowhere. Well, they took our jobs!
Right? So it's such a part of our culture, what's going on, what's stoking this anger, that it becomes made fun of, or I guess satirized, in cartoons. A financial meltdown. In the late 1970s, we had something of a financial meltdown. We had stagnant growth, inflation, unemployment. Today, major fears of economic insecurity, stagnant wages, outsourcing, housing crisis. And check out this. This is just from a couple weeks ago. This was on the front page of the Washington Post. Rising prices, falling dollars stoke memories of the 70s. It's the same kind of thing that led to that uprising of that era. And the energy crisis, this is an obvious one. Here's the real price of gasoline from 1919 to 2007. Here was the 1980 uprising. That's what was going on that set the stage then. Here's today. There's something a little different on the energy crisis from back then and today. Today, here's how it sort of unfolded. You got the warning with Jimmy Carter and the sweater, a price spike in 1979, to a full-blown crisis on the eve of the 1980 election. Today it's a little different. Today's energy crisis is intensifying, but with overt profiteering, certainly more overt profiteering and corruption, which I think stokes an even more intense kind of uprising. You had the warning, 2001, 2005, the energy tab, we need to do something on energy, said the Bush administration. Gas prices hit an all-time high. But it's also punctuated by this. Then you go home and you turn on the television and you see this. This kind of thing is all throughout the media. ExxonMobil making $40 billion a year in profits. We hear so much about the oil companies just raking in a huge amount of money. Another uprising factor, national security and competence. This is another direct kind of analogy. In that 1980 uprising, you had a Middle East quagmire. The Iranian Revolution, which led to the hostage crisis, which led to a high-profile stalemate. Today's Middle East quagmire. You had the 9/11 attacks, which were dishonestly used to justify the invasion of Iraq, which of course has become another stalemate. Corruption scandals lead to a loss of confidence in government. Again, this is so analogous. In the 1970s, setting the stage for that uprising, that was the post-Watergate era. Today we're in the post-Delay Abramoff era. And you can see the effect of this and how similar it is in polling. This is congressional approval ratings from 1974 to 2007. 1980, 19%, just 19% had approval of Congress. Today, 18%. Satisfaction in the direction of the country, Back in that 1980 uprising, 84% dissatisfied with the director's